So we've got this video today. ZZZ versus Wuthering Waves is not even a conversation. Now, when I had originally pulled up this video, it did have a different name, and I cannot remember for the life of me what that name was. But we are going to go in and take a look at it because I just think it's an interesting topic of conversation. I've heard some people pulling up Zenless Zone Zero as competition for Wuthering Waves. I don't know why. I still don't understand why people bring that up. It's competition in a sense that it's a new gacha game, but in terms of like your overall gameplay experience, it's not the same at all. It's like instance zones. It's more akin to Honkai Impact Third or Punishing Gray Raven than it is anything close to Wuthering Waves in terms of its open world exploration experience. So I'm really interested to see what this content creator has to say, because they seem to be saying the same thing, that it's not even a conversation to be had. So why don't we jump in and take a look at it? Also, YouTube, this is our first affiliate stream happening today. You can see we got some cool emotes and things happening. If you want to catch the streams live, I stream every Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to come in and tune in for those. But maybe that's going to be changing. We'll have to find out. In the future, we're also going to be streaming a lot during the launch of Wuthering Waves. So make sure you come and tune in for that first week, because maybe there's going to be something extra special. We'll have to wait and see. You'll have to come out just to find out for certain. For now, with our beautiful conversation that we've been having, let's go in and let's give this a watch. And I've muted it.
I believe that the quality that this scene has been exposed to over the past 5 years has been nothing short than incredible. I remember when gacha games used to just be Candy Crush or rhythm games. And now with so many amazing games, we're getting closer and closer to AAA status.
Yeah, like it was crazy. When I didn't really get into gacha games probably until Epic 7, I think, was probably the first gacha game that I got like super hooked on the global release when that happened. And that kind of like was my toes being dipped into the genre as a whole. And I mean, I liked it. I liked it a lot. And then, you know, Genshin Impact obviously changed the game. You know, don't put disrespect on Genshin's name. That way, it still changed the game. And so, yeah, it's really cool to see that. It seems like more and more games are being designed with a cross-platform approach of like mobile, PC, and console. And we're really seeing an even bigger shift towards that now with a lot of the games that are coming in the future too.
And this has also resulted in amazing and huge communities that back up each of their games for their worlds, their characters, and their stories.
Kafka jump scare.
Which has sparked huge competition between two of the heaviest hitter games coming up in less than a month. And it looks like the discourse between both of these games is starting to remind us of another type of rivalry.
Less than a month. It's like 3 days at the time of recording. 3 days, baby. Let's go.
However, it's the way they deliver it.
I'm someone who was not able to join any of the CBTs for neither Wuthering Waves or Zenless Zone Zeros.
Yeah, I didn't get in the ZZZ beta either on either of them. And that was, I'm not going to lie, that was legitimately just disappointing. It sucked so much having to watch a bunch of other people to try that out. And me just sitting there just like, very cool, very nice. Felt like I was in like an NTR or something.
But I cannot wait for both of these games to come out. I have intensely researched both games so I can start uploading content as soon as they release. And through this research, I have found that there is a lot of discourse between both communities.
I mean, discourse is one of the polite ways to going about saying it, but let's be real. There's been a lot of people getting pissed about it. There's like, I mean, it's being overshadowed a lot by the discourse between like the Genshin stands and Wuthering Waves stands. But let's be real, like a lot of people are getting pretty fired up about ZZZ too, and them wanting to do well with it. A lot of content creators, I think, have accepted the reality of ZZZ and what it's going to be. But I feel like a lot of the community is still picking fights in the comment sections and stuff.
The main argument against the other games pretty much consists of calling the other game complete dog shit. So,
well, of course, because only one game is ever allowed to be good. And if it's not good, then it's just absolute dog shit. It is the bottom of the barrel. There's no in between. No other games are allowed to be good. Only one. There can only ever be one. Of course, guys. How could there ever be more than one good game? Who could ever think that could be the reality? Although it's still not Genshin.
I decided to infiltrate the place where the most passionate of gamers for each camps dwell, Reddit.
Why would you ever go into Reddit? Reddit is an absolute cesspool. That's what I've learned about this. Like I just like I have very little respect for the people of Reddit. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pick a fight, but like, I feel like the conversations that happened there, I just like don't even go on the app anymore, guys. No, not at all.
And what I found was shocking, because both games are completely different. In one hand, you have a very poppy and stylized cast of characters with incredible cartoon-like movement animations, with the whole game having a more arcadey feel to it.
Yeah, like, look, don't get me wrong. Zenless Zone Zero absolutely crushes its style. I absolutely love this street punk style. I think the music for it has been fantastic. I love the animation stuff for it. I love that they gave the anime characters a more like he said, cartoony style of animation where you see a lot of like stretching and elongating in the animation that adds so much liveliness and personality to the characters. So 100% from a vibes check perspective, Zenless Zone Zero crushes the vibe check. Let's just be fair.
With the game being divided in many,
although I could do without the furries. I don't care much for the furries or like Nekomata and stuff for that matter. That's fine.
And maps, much like old school gacha games. The TV system that everyone seems to hate, I will have to judge that once I have the chance to play for myself, but this system even got reduced significantly thanks to player feedback from the past CBTs.
Like, let's be real, I have not had a chance to play the TV screens either, but the TV screen portions of Zenless Zone Zero were universally like panned. Nobody actually was excited about the TV screen portion from like any of the discourse I saw. Everyone said, oh yeah, it started out as like a novel thing. It was kind of interesting, but then with how many times you had to do it and for like what it was offering to players, it felt more like something that was just stopping you from getting into the next level and getting into the combat as opposed to adding a fun experience for the player. That's at least what I've been able to garner, like, you know, gather from like the conversation that's been happening. But, you know, like him, I can give a final say on that, my own perspective when the game actually launches, because I do want to check it out on launch, which is going to be later this summer.
And on the other hand of the spectrum, we have a heavy, dark atmosphere, post-apocalyptic, mature, open-world experience with hard.
I don't know if he did something to the music there, but like the depth of like audio I'm getting from the song he's put in, I feel like it's like it doesn't have like the full range. It's feeling a little bit hollow because I've heard this song in game and it is way nicer than what I'm hearing in the video right now.
Hardcore complex combat. And this developer pretty much got the Dev of the Year award from everybody when they announced that they were changing 70% of this story and pretty much redesigned all of their characters' outfits, some mechanics, and even the color scheme of the whole game.
Who would have thought listening to your player base and taking feedback seriously would get you good support from a community? Wow! What a brand new idea! If only some other games would like to do that as well. Jeez Louise.
Making some areas more vibrant and fun to look at. From what I've heard from different people in the community, both games have very hard content where you will have to make full use of your knowledge of the game and the characters to actually beat it. I mean, the criticism between both of these communities get to such a level that I once read somebody said that Zenless Zone Zero gave you too many resources, making the
okay. Whoever said Zenless Zone Zero gave you too many resources is dumb, because every gacha game ever, the way that it works is when you start the game, they flood you with resources, whether that be resources to level characters or resources to pull on the gacha banner. That's how they hook you. Guys, that's how they get you into the game. So no, that's just a ridiculous complaint to give at all. I would honestly want to tell that person to just like stop, but also I just want to add in there that the going back on the comment he made about combat, everything else I've heard from Zenless Zone Zero's combat is that it's like pretty basic. I will reserve my final judgment for once I get my hands on the game on the full launch, but I have not heard people giving the same kind of complexity and what the combat is offering from Wuthering Waves being equivalent to Zenless Zone Zero in any manner. Like everybody else has put Wuthering Waves in terms of like skill significantly higher than that. So I think that is like a pretty weird way to approach it.
The game too easy, which just comes to show you how divided the communities are on simple things like that, when in my opinion, a game giving you more resources should be something to celebrate, because most of the times these games really lock you in with resources and you can barely build any units. Like
100%. One of the biggest frustrations that every player has ever is not having enough resources to raise the characters. Gacha games sell themselves on the characters. That is what, like, I'm going to say like 80% of the experience of a gacha game is getting new characters and being able to use those characters in game. Of course, core combat needs to be there too. But like, that's a major selling point. So if there's a cool roster of characters that you fill out, but you can't play half of them because you don't have the resources to build them, that's so incredibly frustrating. Like, don't come bitching to me that you don't have the resources to build the characters. I will take them from you if you think you have too many.
with all these players talking shit about the other game's difficulty, am I the only one who just doesn't want every single game to be super hard?
I honestly, from everything I've seen, I don't think Zenless Zone Zero is going to be hard. I don't. I legitimately don't.
Like, don't get me wrong. My ass has played all Dark Souls games and Souls-likes under the sun. But when I play a gacha game, I realistically want to be able to do everything I want to do to progress my account and get my premium currency in like 5 to 10 minutes tops. Then
Okay, whenever you're talking about difficulty in a game, especially when you're talking about a gacha game and you're talking about like your dailies are never difficult. Getting your weekly amount of like resources that you want to get for like pulling on a banner, usually anything that locks currency behind that is not that difficult, and or the little bit you can't get from the high difficulty stuff is like pretty negligible. Honkai Star Rail is a pretty good comparison where like, yes, of course there is Memory of Chaos. Memory of Chaos gets pretty difficult at the higher stages, but if you don't 3-star floor 12, it's pretty clearable to do floor 11 3-star all the way up to 3-star, and then maybe floor 12 you're running into some difficulty there. You miss like, what is it, 30 stellar jades or something, maybe 60 at most, not even half of a pull. Like, it's not that big a deal. The rest of the games, like PGR, for example, you just need to basically participate to get all your weekly stuff. And the dailies are super quick. Like, I don't think dailies are going to be difficult. Maybe time consuming from Wuthering Waves. Dailies did take a long time, at least in the closed beta. So we'll see if they change up the dailies for Wuthering Waves at all. But at least from a difficulty perspective, no, it's not going to be an issue. I think it's hilarious to even remotely put Zenless Zone Zero and Dark Souls in the same category.
And I also like to have the option to go super sweaty and play for 4+ hours if I want to. And both of these games seem to offer just that. No game is more casual than the other. It's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, you're 100% going to have that option with Wuthering Waves. If you want to like push the hologram bosses, you want to push the combat and you want to spend some time like sinking your teeth into it, you're going to be able to do that. Or if you just want to go sign and do your dailies, you're going to be able to move on from there too. Absolutely.
Example, gameplay and mechanics wise, I do believe I enjoy the Pokemon-like idea of Wuthering Waves for his Echoes mechanic over the disc drives in Zenless Zone Zero. However,
I love the opportunity to have the Echoes in Wuthering Waves because it gives an additional skill to every character, and it's a one that's completely customizable based on the echoes that you like put in there. You can cater it to your playstyle. I think as far as the leveling resources for echoes being a little more scarce, and there's going to be probably some barriers there, I think the system overall actually is pretty good, and the ability to farm them like basically indefinitely. Also, shout out to Darkside for the follow. Thank you so much for the follow. Greatly appreciate that. Thanks, dude. Or do that. I don't actually know.
We all fail to forget that they are equally
they will make the dailies more accessible. It's in the dev notes. Ooh, I seem to have missed that, but I'd love to hear about that.
grindy, and we are still going to be at the mercy of RNGesus, stuck with completely garbage pieces of equipment. But you and me all know that after we get that 5th piece of shitty gear, we'll be logging back in tomorrow to do it all over again. Because we're gotcha.
True. I can't get past, I'm sorry, there's like a high pass filter or something on like this audio or whatever he did, and it's making me kind of mad, like subtly, because like the song he's using is good. It's what is it? Is it the Permanence Heron song, like from Wuthering Waves? And it's like, it feels so hollow, and I'm like, bro, you are robbing the substance of this song. What did you do to it?
Players, and we love to suffer. In doing this,
like, I mean, that works for the meme, but again, the big crush nature of that is like wild.
this video, I just got even more hyped to play both of these games, and I think we should not really start drama for games that, aren't even out yet. These two games are the result of an evolving market that have made consumer-friendly changes before they're released. So regardless of which one you prefer, the fact that we can now enjoy such high-quality games comes from the players that are super engaged with the community and offer constructive feedback to the developers. Everyone talked about how Wuthering Waves made massive changes to their games. However, when Zenless Zone Zero did the same thing, it was radio silent.
No, it was not. Like, okay. No, here's the thing. Wuthering or Zenless Zone Zero did not make a massive change in their game. As far as I'm aware, the only significant change they did was they were decreasing the amount that you needed to do in the TV zones. That's not a massive change. They didn't overhaul the TV zones. They didn't remove the TV zones. They've just made that not as big a deal. That's not been revamped. Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, completely rewrote the story, like 90%. That's like a 100% rework, and also a significant rework if you think about the time and investment that's needed for over the course of the game and how that's going to have rippling effects in terms of like voiceover reworks, scripting reworks, your dialogue options and your dialogue tree options. Like there's a huge overhaul that takes place in there that like maybe some people think I'm underestimating that. I don't think so. I think decreasing the amount you're in one zone, it's not worth the same kind of response that I don't think that we've gotten from Wuthering Waves.
Both of these games seem to have great development teams that are excited to push their games to new audiences. Best we can do as consumers is give both games a chance and generate our own conclusions to continue to enjoy even better gacha games in the future. Since currently, the vast majority of comments are from a very small minority of players that were able to get into the CBTs. I do believe that it's important to take their comments with a grain of salt and form our own opinions.
Okay, I will say there is some legitimacy to that. Like, you always want to be careful about, like, you know, the dreaded vocal minority of the game, you know, and how much influence that they're going to have on your game. Because if you do have, you know, 5% of the player base saying, you know, we want this to be like extremely, extremely difficult with no other ways to work around it, then yeah, you might have some ripple effects or damage to the community in some ways. Or in the same way, if you've got a freaking vocal minority in the game saying that we don't want endgame content because it's going to be too hard for us and that it's going to stress people out, then you're also going to sink your game. So, I mean, like, I understand. You want to be careful about how you're listening to the vocal minority, sure. But also player feedback is still important. And so you need to learn, and this is not something that's easy, but you need to learn to be able to parse out what is the vocal minority versus what is legitimate feedback. And beta tests are a good way to find that. So I think they did a pretty good job with it so far.
Of course the community is going to be divided, because I think even though both of these games will exist in the gacha space, they are targeting completely different players. In my case, I think I fit into the build of both camps. I like me some really dark, really cool looking aesthetic characters in a greedy storyline where any character could die and it's very bleak and there's always that possibility that the villains might succeed. However,
I like a more serious storyline, but I don't always love bleak storylines. Like, I don't love to walk away from a story feeling hopeless, if that makes sense. I want the story to have stakes. I think that's the one thing that a lot of gacha games in particular don't have, but even like a lot of animes don't have as well. There's no stakes. You're never actually concerned for any of the characters within the game or story. And I want to have that. I want to feel like, oh, like this character could die. There could be real consequences in the story for failing certain actions within that. However, I don't want it to just be like purely depressing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch it, but I know the end of Devilman Crybaby, for example. Devilman Crybaby has an extremely bleak and horrific ending to the point that it's almost comical, but like it's awful. And like, I have zero desire to like watch any more of that or to rewatch any of that simply because of like how dark it is.
I also love a game that can take itself not too seriously with its story, be super funny, be super colorful. So when you put both of these factions facing each other in a very similar release window for these games, no wonder everyone is gonna want their game to be better than the other one. I believe that.
And let's be clear, I don't think Wuthering Waves falls into that bleak storyline. I think it was kind of a weird equivalence he was making there. Not the bleak side, but just like, it's just a more serious story and a more mature art style. It's just not super vibrant and cartoony. Like, and all the characters have a more mature look to them. So like, it's not the same thing.
This will be two amazing games targeted at different audiences. And there'll probably be some overlap. Just like in my case, I genuinely think both of these games will be amazing. But what do I know? I did not play any of the CBTs, and for all I know,
never watched the anime Your Lie in April. I thought it was like, it's sad, but it's not bleak. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm being, I always thought, like, here's the other thing too. Man, we're derailing here. I think it's okay for his story to be sad and to have a sad or tragic ending. Because, like, there's a difference between tragic and bleak, if that makes sense. Like, bleak is like the feeling of like hopelessness you have from a story. Like, there's literally nothing redeeming about its conclusion, and that it's just, you feel depressed and you want to die. Having something be a tragic end is where maybe there is like a loss of a character, or there is ultimately some kind of consequence in the end that is sad, but like there's usually something to grow from there, that you can still like kind of like see an optimism for the future. That's not the end of the story. Often bleak endings are just like, there's no opportunity. There's no opportunity for the future. So my understanding is Your Lie in April falls more into the tragedy category as opposed to the bleak category.
I could play both games and absolutely hate both of them.
Yeah, Anohana is I think a similar one, but I feel like that one's like kind of like outlined, like kind of like, you know, kind of what's happening from the get-go on that one, from my understanding.
At which case, I'll probably make a YouTube video about it. But for now, I am very excited with both games being pretty much less than a month away. What about you? Are you more excited for the defending champions title in Zenless Zone Zero, or more excited for the challenger coming in from Kuro Games?
Why? I guess because the pink hair. I was like, why the heck did you bring in Encore? Of all characters that you could bring in to face off against Nicole, you brought in Encore? I feel like I'm like the only like Encore hater out here, that I just like actually don't care. I know some people think she's so cute and they love her, or some people think like she's like got a really cool kit, they really like her. I honestly, the only character I don't like more than Encore is Verena. Like, that's the only character that beats out on that for me. But look, let's wrap this up in a nice little neat bow. I think it's still a good video overall that he put that together. I think it's a great topic of conversation. I think it's something good to address and to take into consideration. I do still think some of the equivalencies he made there aren't even worth making, simply because I don't think Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero in terms of combat are in the same category or in terms of the same play style. And I understand he was kind of arguing against some of that, but it's still, yeah, I think it was a really off base with a couple of his thoughts and conclusions, but overall, I think it was a good video. I am still pissed about that high pass filter or low pass filter. I forget which one it is all the time, but I'm still pissed that you had that because you took away the experience of those songs. But of course, everyone in chat, what I'm going to ask you to do right now is make sure to go in, drop a like on the video so he can get some credit for that. Gotcha Champ was the channel. Thank you so much, Gotcha Champ. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.